Good morning and welcome. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome Luca Nanni. You're the VP of Global Supply Chain at PMI, and you're talking to us from Lausanne, I guess, today?
That's correct.
Do you want to say a few words and introduce yourself before we diving into the conversation and the dialogue today?
Good day, Fred, and thanks for having me here. As you said, I'm Luca Nanni. I'm Italian. I'm based in Switzerland, where the headquarters of my company is, Philip Morris. I've lived in my life across a number of countries in Europe and in Asia. I have a background in procurement and supply chain across the food industry, both the B2C and the B2B. And currently I'm in charge of global supply chain for Philip Morris, which is comprising end-to-end planning, logistics and distribution, and customer service. As you might know, Philip Morris has embarked a very exciting and bold journey with the ambition of discontinuing as soon as possible the cigarette business and replacing it with better alternatives for our consumers. You might know the brand IQOS, which is a unheated tobacco system. We have vaping products, we have nicotine pouches, we have other pharma-like products. And I'm very proud to say that already today, our smoke-free products represent over 35% of our net revenues.
Yeah, it's fascinating transformation. And talking about transformation, Luca, you kickstarted a supply chain transformation as well, and you've embraced naturally digitization as part of the evolution of your portfolio, right? So what is your ambition, and how does the digitization and automation of decisions fit into it? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned just a minute ago, we moved from being a monoproduct cigarette company characterized by very high predictability, a supply network which is under our control, with a very simple distribution model, totally indirect, and let me say a fairly low complexity in terms of portfolio, to a multi-category business, which is a system made of electronics, consumables, and accessories, right? With a very high frequency of product launches and product discontinuations, with much more complex distribution channels, both direct and indirect, and a portfolio that is doubling in complexity every 3 years. So, in order to support this big change in our business dynamics, supply chain had to transform as well, and that's why we've done some shifts in our operating model. Right, we have centralized planning and logistics with the aim of synchronizing the data and information flow with the physical flow of materials and goods. We have organized the supply chain around diverse supply networks, this to facilitate the orchestration of the product supply. And we have clearly split the performing activities, so the more business as usual activities, from the transforming one, in order to have really the focus on what needed to be done in our transformation in terms of process, in terms of digital systems, and in terms of capabilities. So our aim is really, like many other companies, to be able to anticipate risks and opportunities over the midterm horizon, while building agility in the short-term horizon to cope with the ever-changing business environment. So we divided in 3 stages, and you're very familiar with that, Fred, I believe. The first one is about stability, so mastering really the known and the risk that we can already foresee. The second step is moving into agility, which is mastering the unknown and the unanticipated, if you want, risks. And the third one really is into synchronization, so to go beyond supply chain and integrating, if you want, upstream and downstreams with our partners. As you can imagine, data, digital, and analytics play a fundamental role in this agenda, and that's why we have decided a few years back to fully digitalize the entire planning. We are now in the process of digitalizing logistics, and these create obviously an amount of data which is unprecedented, which are readily available and much more accurate than in the past. Now, what we need to build is actually the muscles on how to exploit this richness, right? And this goes back to what I call the decision-making process, and I believe you have you call it the decision intelligence, right?
Yes.
Which is really the capability to turn all these data analytics into a powerhouse of decision making. And in order to do that, what we are looking at is to automate as much as possible the operational and the micro decisions, so to spare resources that which we can focus into much more adding value activities, like, for example, what we call the forward-looking scenario planning. So moving from a descriptive type of data analytics to a predictive to a prescriptive, in this context, is not anymore an option. It's really a must for us.
It's a must-have.
Yeah.
So maybe you talked about stability, writing my notes here. I was writing when you were talking stability, agility, and synchronization. And maybe there's a fourth pillar then from what you're saying, which is automation, which is super interesting. And you're doing this in a context that I think people don't necessarily understand how much your company is changing at its core. And that's what you were saying at the beginning, right? Going from a quote, quote, as you call it, as your words, a simple product and a probably simple supply chain, even though I'm sure it's got a lot of regulation that make things a little bit more complex, to being a electronic device company, which means you have returns, which means you have all this complexity plus the consumables, and maybe also direct going for the device going direct to consumers. So I don't think you can think about a transformation of a supply chain that is more radical at its core than the one that you guys have been going through for the last few years. So that's really fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Can you imagine moving from a very stable, simple product made of, let me say, paper filter and tobacco, right?
Yeah.
With long BUBD, very simple in demand forecasting, with big volumes, high margin, to actually, as you said, a system of long supply chains, totally externalized, consumables, innovation, and phase out of products, which for us is extremely new. So it's really the full blast. You're totally right.
No, that's what's the fun. When I started interacting with you guys, I remember the first meetings, I just was completely unaware of the depth of the transformation. But I feel like the energy inside a PMI, whenever you interact with people, is very high, and the challenge has been fully embraced. So you started kind of developing all the descriptive analytics to cover the areas of inventory, and you're now embedding your DDS approach, your daily direction setting, with actions and recommendations that are fully visible, traceable, and actionable from the platform. Can you share a little bit why this is important to PMI and how we approach this, right? So it's really impacting your DDS, your daily direction setting model.
Yeah, as you said, right, having timely and accurate and, let me say, granular data, both internal and external data, by the way, it's great, right, because it generates insights and analytics which help you to provide against the service excellence that you want to give to your consumers and customers, right? But it's not enough. And that's why one of the key success factors for us was to implement standard drumbeats like the PDCA and the daily direction setting, as you said, based on key performance indicators and key risk indicators, which are fully interlocked across all the geographies and the different functions in our organization. So having the same process and the same data allowed us not only to manage the performance, but as well to identify losses and grab the opportunities that are out there. Now, the key issue has been for the longest time that data were not readily available. Therefore, it took time before being available in the past, and therefore very often being obsolete for the proper decision making. Often they were not accurate enough. And in almost any of the cases, they were very, very, very manually managed. So what we did as a first step, we leveraged whatever available tool out there to make them visible, to create standardized dashboards and to make the sharing process a little bit better. But this was not fixing the accuracy issue as well as the labor intense process behind. And that's why, Fred, especially starting last year, we really intensified the partnership with you and your guys in Aera. And what we've done, we have built waves of data sets that for us are extremely relevant. And we start working with you on a 3 type of activities, right? The first one was in this, fixing the fundamental thing of master data.
The core.
Exactly, the core, the sufficiency, the availability and accuracy of the master data, then automatize the specific data set, and then making it available in their platform. So this obviously brings us to a descriptive level, which is good enough for us to eliminate all the waste on the chain and having real-time and accurate data available for proper decision making, and as well sparing resources that now we are channeling with your guys into making this descriptive data predictive, and in some cases even prescriptive, like we have already some use case, right? So, and this pair with another thing, we use this work done together with you guys to start embedding in our organizations a culture for data, as well as upskilling our organization to make sure we can leverage as much as possible from the technology.
And that impacts hundreds of users, I assume, right? On a daily basis, you get the velocity. But just to recap what you said get the foundation right, then get your descriptive analytics in place and on time. So to take an analogy of supply chain, your OTIF for your data is pretty good now. It's on time and in full in front of the users for them to make decision. But you just touched on that. I'd love for you to drill that in a little bit more, which is the prescriptive capabilities, right? So you've got the descriptive in place. You're bringing stability and agility back to what you were talking about earlier. But you're already starting on the prescriptive capabilities to enable your end-to-end supply chain synchronization. And I would want to add automation as well. Can you illustrate where you are on this journey?
Absolutely. Our target is to be able to have to increase the frequency and the speed and accuracy and the reliability, obviously, of our decisions, right? Because if we embed them in our daily, weekly, monthly operations, then we really can generate process and efficiency while guaranteeing a better service and as well our financials. Now, our aim is to move towards an automation of a systematic automation, if you want, of our decisions, while the human factor of it become more an auditor of those decisions, right? And I think this one, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, is very much aligned with Aera's thinking and aim, for sure. Right? And in this context, what we started to do, building on the reliable, readily available, and timely available data at a descriptive level, we work with you on some use cases, for example, the excess and obsolescence, right, of materials and finished goods, as well as the inventories at the different nodes of the supply chain. And by doing so, for example, on the excess and obsolescence, we've been already able today to build a muscle where we can anticipate and forward-looking, see what are the potential risks we have there, work on them to minimize, if not eliminating, and properly budgeting. So we create even a financial predictability by having that kind of capability, right? Yeah. And this one is done fully in an automatized way without much interaction, and by using my people to put the intelligence around the data rather than actually them crunching data in a very inefficient way. And the same we're doing with the stocks, right? With the stocks across different nodes, whether materials or finished good. And I'm already seeing very promising results, right? Where the system is starting to providing us some recommendations, in some cases even some decisions, where our people now are actually decision makers on, do I accept actually what the system is providing me because it's accurate enough, or actually I want to simulate different scenario and therefore taking a different decision. So we're really lifting the job of our people. Now, this took some time because the beginning was a new new activity for us, right? But the beauty is that by now having these use cases, now I see already that the lead time to build new business case and to bring new data live in a descriptive and a predictive and eventually the prescriptive way is becoming much faster. And in fact, I believe you're aware, right? In November, we're going to run our weekly and monthly sessions in the entire global planning already based on all the data that we have been able to capture in Aera platform. So it's extremely powerful, and I believe that 2024 is going to be really the turnaround point where we will really fully utilize the capabilities that Aera is providing us.
I want to ask you about it, but I just want to rebound to what you were saying earlier. You talked about muscle, which is a super interesting way of framing the change, the way work gets done. You're talking about this muscle that knows now how to operate between the humans, the data, and the machine. And you also talk about the system delivering recommendations and people obviously accepting or rejecting. You talked about doing some what if. I think you're to think about it with both the muscle on one hand and the memory on the other hand. You're building the muscle, but you're starting to build gradually a memory of all the decisions that are made on that given use case or that given skills, I would like to call it. And that becomes a muscle memory. So I've just thought that when you were using the word muscle, I thought I would bring the memory as well. But let's talk about next year. Let's talk about what's next, Luca, in your decision intelligence, your decision automation journey, because I think you have big ambitions there as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, we have 2023 has been a very, very important year for us. We have implemented integrated business planning across 75% of our business and roughly 50 markets. And as you can imagine, the decision intelligence behind the IBP is of fundamental importance. In order to make it successful, in order to bring the right decision points with the right aggregation level at the different decision makers across the company, right, from the CEO down. And therefore, we need an acceleration in our journey, as we said before, from the descriptive data to the prescriptive ones, in order to reduce really the effort and making sure that we can dedicate much more time in the business planning and in driving the company towards the right decisions, rather than actually wasting most of the time of my organization in low added value activities. Right. I mentioned before, we have 3 stages approach, from stability to agility to synchronization. At the moment, I can tell you that the stability phase is basically closed, and we already worked and we're already working on the agility one. But this whole journey will take another couple of years before being completed. But I'm very, very confident that these 3 steps and all the work we're doing on data as a key enabler on all our strategy will bring us to our ambition in supply chain, and supply chain to support the ambition of a smoke-free future for Philip Morris.
No, I love the frameworks here, and it's the data, it's the muscle, it's the memory, the intelligence, and I think that journey will never stop, because you'll keep learning how to automate and how to leverage the machine. We're coming to the end of our time, but Luca, thank you so much for this incredible insight. Thanks for the partnership. It's been a pleasure to be working with you guys at PMI and help you a little bit in that massive transformation, both of the core business and of your supply chain, as well as your data analytics strategy. So thank you so much, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Thanks a lot for having me here, and I look forward.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.